Sukuna just proved why he's the strongest sorcerer in the history of Jujutsu Kaisen, but even with all the recent attention, the full scope of his forms and abilities is never clearly explained. So today, we're fixing that. Soon we'll be talking about Sukuna's domain, his secretive open technique, and more. But first we have to start with his introduction, when Yuji eats one of his fingers in an attempt to save Megumi. This manifests Sukuna's single finger form, which is brought to you by Honkai Star Rail. Honkai Star Rail is the newest multi-platform space fantasy RPG from Hoyoverse, the makers of Genshin Impact. It's free to play and supports cross-platform play, so you can experience it on mobile, PC, and now PlayStation 5 as well. The characters are especially charming too, with over 30 playable characters, including 2 new 5-star ones. Hua, the timid young wind-type support character, and Argenti, the suave, gentlemanly physical-type character. You'll definitely be able to find a character that fits your style. So what are you waiting for? Smash that link down below to download the game and use the coupon code on screen for an extra 50 Stellar Jade right now. And if you log in every day for a week, you'll get 10 free pulls for the new 5-star characters. And now, back to Sukuna. Single finger Sukuna is the weakest form we see him in, but even with just one finger, Sukuna is still decently powerful. He is easily capable of tearing apart the building him and Megumi are on, and he also one-shots the second grade cursed spirit the students were struggling with. But he's not that strong, as he literally gets embarrassed by Gojo. This is when it's established that Sukuna cannot control Yuji while they share a body. In fact, he cannot manifest at all because Yuji prevents it. After this, we move to two-finger Sukuna, but he doesn't manifest right away, as we learn that Yuji can't suppress Sukuna if he consumes just one finger at a time. We do see two-finger Sukuna later during the mission at the juvenile detention center after Yuji loses to the finger bearer. In this case, Sukuna was able to manifest because Yuji willingly switched with him. This is the first time we actually see Sukuna use some of his abilities, mainly his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. Malevolent Shrine is unique even for a domain expansion, as it is the only domain that has currently been confirmed to be barrierless. This technique has been described as divine and similar to a master artist painting on not a canvas, but on air itself. Additionally, by leaving an escape rope for his opponent, Sukuna creates a binding vow that increases his domain's effective range, maxing it out at a 200-meter radius. The actual effects of his domain are fairly simple. Anything within its radius is constantly slashed by Sukuna's 2 techniques, Cleave and Dismantle. Cleave is a slashing attack that matches the hardness of an opponent to cut them down in one slash. This is mostly used for entities with cursed energy. Dismantle, on the other hand, is a slashing attack that slashes at one set strength. It is used mostly to destroy inanimate objects or things without cursed energy. While these both constantly slash within Sukuna's domain, he can target specific techniques to specific entities if he wants to, in order to ensure that entities that require cleave are served correctly. We see this domain used against a finger bearer, which easily destroys the special grade cursed spirit and allows Sukuna to collect his 3rd finger. Coincidentally, Yuji is unable to remain in control of his body due to the damage he took from the finger bearer. We don't see any new abilities from Sukuna in his 3-finger form, but we do get another benchmark for his strength, as he absolutely destroys Megumi without even using his technique. He one-shots the Great Serpent, takes 0 damage from Nue, and sends Megumi through multiple buildings just for fun. After they finish sparring, Yuji's body dies, but this gives Sukuna the chance to set up the most important binding vow in Jujutsu Kaisen. Sukuna offers to bring Yuji back to life on the condition that Sukuna has the opportunity to control Yuji's body for 1 minute. This will activate upon Sukuna staying in chain, and while this takeover is active, Sukuna is not allowed to hurt anyone, but he can do anything else that he pleases. On top of this, Yuji will not remember the binding vow either, and Yuji is forced into this agreement upon losing a fight to Sukuna in their mind, I think. After this, we do not see Sukuna for a little bit until Yuji loses to Chozo, which leaves him almost dead. This gives Nanako and Jogo the opportunity to feed 10 fingers to Yuji, which allows Sukuna to temporarily manifest. This form is much stronger than any form we have seen up to this point, and he has no issue overpowering even the likes of Jogo, who is incredibly strong in his own right. This fight really lets us see just how strong Sukuna can be, as he easily rips through buildings and takes no damage from lava-based attacks, all while just kind of fooling around. In addition to this increased strength, we are also introduced to one other ability Sukuna has, the Open ability. This ability allows Sukuna to use flames that were more powerful than Jogo's and were capable of easily ending the cursed spirit. Besides that though, we have no information on what this ability is or how it functions. Some people think it is Sukuna using Jogo's technique here, some people think he's using Yuji's technique, and some people think this is an ability that he developed with the aid of his cannibalism, but nothing has been confirmed even 2 years after this scene was first published in the manga. Other than Open, we also see Sukuna decimate Mahoraga. This is a great example of just how knowledgeable Sukuna is about Jujutsu. He immediately recognizes Mahoraga's curse tool, the Sword of Extermination, and it only takes him seconds to understand how Mahoraga's adaptation works, and the best way to get around it, which he does with his domain and Open once again. This rendition of Malevolent Shrine reveals that Sukuna is capable of changing the size of his domain at will, as long as it's under 200 meters, as he shortens the radius to just 140 meters in order to protect Megumi. This usage of open also seems much stronger than the one he used against Jogo, but we also didn't actually see the one he used against Jogo, so it's kind of hard to tell. After the Shibuya incident, we move into Sukuna's second form, when he uses the Enchain command to take control of Yuji in order to force feed Megumi one of Yuji's fingers, which contains the entirety of Sukuna's essence in it. This allows Sukuna to escape the jail that is Yuji's body and take over Megumi's. Because Megumi wasn't born with the intention of acting as a vessel for Sukuna, Megumi cannot maintain control over his body once Sukuna makes the switch. This grants Sukuna access to Megumi's technique, and he is able to make much better use of the Shikigami than Megumi, as we see his interpretation of Nue is much larger and considerably stronger than Megumi's. But he's not completely free yet. While he does have more freedom than he did in Yuji's body, Sukuna is still restricted, as Megumi can't control how much cursed energy Sukuna has access to, limiting the sorcerer's overall power to just 10% of his total. This actually puts Yuji and Maki on equal footing with Sukuna during their short conflict, but this restriction does not last for long, as Sukuna undergoes a cleansing process by taking a bath in the blood of cursed spirits. This is stage 1 in a 2-stage process to suppress Megumi's soul. The second step is causing emotional trauma, which Sukuna does by killing the sorcerer that is in his sister's body. However, before this fight with Yozuru, Sukuna takes the time to tame the remaining Shikigami. Off-screen, he tames Raging Bull, an offensive Shikigami which gets stronger the longer it runs in one direction, Round Deer, which outputs positive energy to heal the user and prevent harm, and of course Mahoraga, the strongest Shikigami in Jujutsu Kaisen, which has the ability to adapt to any and all phenomena that it experiences. But that's not all. It can also adapt to any and all phenomena that Sukuna experiences, as we see him summon just Mahoraga's wheel and use it to adapt to Yozuru's technique before summoning the beast to finish her off. We also see in this fight that Sukuna can summon partial Shikigami for use, which protects them from being destroyed but limits their capabilities. This is also the form where Sukuna consumes 4 of the 5 remaining fingers and his old mummy, which substitutes for the final finger, bringing him back to his full strength. This is done in preparation for his fight against Gojo, where we see a few new abilities from Sukuna. The first one he reveals is Domain Amplification, which is a technique he learned from Kenjaku. Domain Amplification is essentially imbuing a user's cursed energy with their domain, at the cost of not being able to use their technique while it's active. In this situation, it allows Sukuna to hit through Gojo's infinity in hand-to-hand combat, but he cannot use his technique to get through infinity. Yet. It's also revealed that Sukuna can change the conditions of his domain at will via a binding vow. He can change the size, change the strength of their sure hit effect, craft a barrier around a normally barrierless domain, and even use domain amplification while in his domain, which is supposed to be impossible. On top of all this, he can also bypass technique burnout. This technique comes with a huge risk, and it can prevent the user from utilizing their domain. And Sukuna does ultimately lose the ability to use his domain, but it's not because of this. It's because he took too much brain damage from Infinite Void. It's also worth mentioning that Sukuna seems a bit subpar in hand-to-hand combat during this fight, as he seems to take a lot more physical damage from Gojo's attacks than Gojo sustains from his. This could just be Gojo being amazing at hand-to-hand combat, but there is another theory as to why he is struggling in this specific department. Sukuna also shows even more applications of the 10 Shadows technique after the domain portion of the battle ends. The first new application we see is Agito, which is the merging of multiple Shikigami, including Round Deer, Tiger Funeral, and Great Serpent. This combination allows the Shikigami to surpass their normal limits and act with more versatility, at the cost of putting more Shikigami at risk at once. The main strength behind this combination is Round Deer, as it has the ability to regenerate. Sukuna also shows that he can use water from Max Elephant without summoning the Shikigami, and he uses it to emulate Piercing Blood. The last ability we see Sukuna use from a Shikigami is Strong Dismantle, which is an adaptation made by Mahoraga which allows him to cut space itself. This is an adaptation that uses Sukuna's base technique as the blueprint, and as a result, Sukuna retains the ability to use this even after Mahoraga is destroyed. Strong Dismantle might just be the best ability in the show. It acts the same way as Dismantle, as it is a slash that travels invisibly over a distance, but instead of hitting an object, it hits the space the object is in. This essentially allows the slash to bypass durability or defensive abilities and destroy anything it comes in contact with, and it was the ability that Sukuna used to kill Gojo. As far as we know, there is no way to stop this ability from hitting besides dodging it. Maybe the inverted Spear of Heaven could stop it, but it's not in the series right now, so it doesn't really matter. And that brings us to Sukuna's final form, his true Heian Era form. As far as we know, Sukuna does not have any new abilities in this form, but that doesn't mean he's not stronger, because he is. by a lot. This form of Sukuna has 4 arms and multiple mouths, allowing the sorcerer to use hand signs and incantations to strengthen his technique without having to worry about the limitations normal sorcerers have to face. We see this in action against Kashimo, as he has no issue monologuing while also increasing the strength of Strong Dismantle via a chant. The extra arms also help in hand-to-hand combat, and fighting with 4 arms kind of explains why his hand-to-hand combat skills seem lackluster in other bodies. Sukuna also makes use of a cursed tool in this form, Kamutoke. Kamutoke was created by Yozuru upon her death, and it can basically shoot lightning at a range. But right now we don't exactly know how strong this cursed tool is, as the only person we saw it used against was Kashimo, who is immune to its electrical effects. It's also worth mentioning that Kamutoke seems to be a replica of one of Sukuna's Heian Era weapons. The Heian Era was when Sukuna earned the title of strongest sorcerer in history. In this era, Sukuna carried 2 cursed tools, Hiten and Supreme Martial Solution. We don't know exactly what either of these cursed tools do, but while he was using them, he absolutely destroyed anyone that opposed him. This included the Sun, Moon, and Stars squad, the 5 empty generals, the Abe clan's elite forces, and the Pacification squad, which is composed of Sugawara clan remnants, who were also the ancestors of Gojo and Yuta. Towards the end of his life in the Heian Era, Sukuna learned how to become a cursed object in order to live eternally. This was taught to him by Kinjaku, and Sukuna was able to do it on his first try. It is also around this time that Sukuna made some sort of binding vow with Kinjaku, but we do not know the details of that vow or frankly anything about it. This is also the time period that Sukuna met Uraume, who likely worked with him to help him preserve meat with her ice techniques, as there was no refrigeration 1,000 years ago. Whether this is a purely professional relationship or has evolved into something more platonic or romantic is ambiguous, but I would say they are at least friends based on their reunion and Uraume's reaction to Sukuna's praise. How Uraume is alive in the modern day, I have no idea. If you like this breakdown of Sukuna's character, be sure to subscribe, and if you already are, then I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for the continued support week after week. It truly does mean a lot to me, and I will see you next week for another video.